Peace and love, family. This is Adolf. I just wanted to come to you guys today with this video I have. I made this video because I'm just getting tired of everybody. You know, every time you say you're from Denver, you're from Colorado, and they're like, oh, well, what about the skiing and the Broncos and the Nuggets, and what about the weed that's legalized? And I just made this video to let everybody know we are more than that, and we have a rich Black history here. We have a history of entrepreneurs. We have a history of a lot of prominent people that share the same skin as us. So it's a small little video just to let you guys know some history. You may know some people on here, you may not. But the main reason why I made this is because if you don't know where you come from, then you don't know where you're going, you know. So using that old saying, here we go. And first off, we have Brother Jim Beckworth, and he was one of Colorado's first fur trappers, and he's also the co-founder of the city of Pueblo, and he became the chief of the Crow Nation Indians. Brother Jim Beckworth. All right, next we have Clara Brown. Sister Brown, she was the first Black woman to cross the plains during the gold rush, and she made so much money from doing that she reached back to help free slaves in the Underground Railroad, and she brought them to Colorado. They actually have a stained glass window of her in the Capitol. And she was a great sister. She thought about her people, and she thought to bring them here to Colorado. I don't know if she believed if it was more safe, but back in those days it probably was. So next up we have Brother Barney Ford. And Mr. Ford, he was a runaway slave who taught himself to read and write, and he started his career as a barber, then as an innkeeper, then a restaurant owner, and then a hotel owner. This brother, he was making major moves. He became the first Black businessman in Breckenridge. If you guys don't know what Breckenridge is, if you're new to Colorado, or even if you're from Colorado and just don't know, it's up in the mountains. It's a popular ski town now. He opened up Ford's Chop House, which is the first Black-owned restaurant in Breckenridge in 1880. And today, if you guys don't know, if you recognize his name, he has a school named after him in the Montbello neighborhood. That's actually the neighborhood I grew up in. And not only that, but they have a house museum named in his honor too, and that's in Breckenridge. And he also lobbied in Washington to keep Colorado from attaining statehood, because if Colorado would have obtained statehood, which they did, Black people would not be able to have the right to vote. So he was he looked out for his people. He looked out for the best interests of us here in Colorado. So next up are the Douglas brothers, and they look pretty familiar to you. If they look pretty familiar to you, that's because they were the sons of the great Frederick Douglass. They migrated here to Denver in 1886, and they created Denver's first Black school and ran a mortuary and a restaurant on California Street. That's downtown for you guys who don't know that. Next up we have Mr. Lewis Price. Lewis Price, this is one of my favorites. He was called the Black Wizard because he was a great businessman. He was into real estate and real estate investing, and was actually one of the first Black real estate investors here in Denver. He became very successful and was one of Denver's wealthiest men, Black or white. So he believed we were equals of the whites, and he had a 2-story mansion on the corner of 18th Avenue and Sherman. He was known to hire white servants, and every Sunday he would ride through Capitol Hill with all white horses and a white driver. Mr. Price, he was actually, he had a quote that I'm loving. It says, my advice to the Negro is to get property first. Get that before education. With property and comfortable homes for the Negro, education will follow. So that brother, he was on the right path. He was trying to empower his people. And while doing that, he was empowering himself. So big ups to Mr. Louis Price. Next up, we have Mr. Bill Pickett. And a lot of you guys know him. Are you Denver natives? You'll know because of the National Black Western Rodeo. And that's usually held on Martin Luther King Day weekend or usually on that Monday. And it's a black rodeo. And Mr. Bill Pickett, he was the most famous black cowboy, and he was the inventor of bulldogging. In 1890, he started it, and bulldogging is the act of throwing a steer on his back with your bare hands and teeth, and he started that whole thing. So if you ever go to the black rodeo or the rodeo period, and you see somebody doing that, Mr. Bill Pickett invented that. He actually has a couple of I think it's souvenirs and statues and pictures at the Black West History Museum. And if you're not from Denver, that's right on the corner of is it 26th in California. So if you ever get a chance, check that out. I know a lot of natives, we went there for field trips during Black History Month, with no other day, but you know, we got to see it at least. So he actually started, Mr. Bill Pickett, he started the black rodeo here in Denver in 1984. So big ups to Mr. Bill Pickett. Next up, we have Justina Ford, and she's Colorado's first black female doctor. Her house was actually where the Black History Museum is. So I'll show you guys a picture of that too. That was her actual house where she lived. So big up to Sister Justina Ford. Next up, we have Samuel Eddie Carey. He is Colorado's first black attorney. He started the Sam Carey Bar Association, an all-black law association here in Denver in 1971. So big ups to Brother Samuel Eddie Carey. Next up, we have Lieutenant Earl Mann. He is the first African-American elected to Colorado legislature here in Denver, in Colorado, in 1942. So big ups to Lieutenant Earl Mann. And next up, we have Hattie McDaniel. See her there. She was a member of East High School's alumni. She graduated from East High School. She was the first black to win an Academy Award, woman or man. And she was in the movie Gone with the Wind. I know a lot of Denver natives know that too as well. Not only that, she was the first black woman or man to sing on national radio. So big ups to Sister Hattie McDaniel. All right, moving. Okay. And next up we have, and I know everybody probably knows her. If you don't, this is Sister, her name was Sarah Breedlove, but she was known as Madam C.J. Walker. She was the first African-American female millionaire. In 1905, she started as a cook and a laundry attendant, and then she began mixing her hair products in her kitchen. Some of her hair products were called Wonderful Hair Grower, and she did that for local women here in Denver, and she blew up and became very rich. And she is a pillar in the black hair care community. You know, it wouldn't be a lot out there for black hair care if it wasn't for Madam C.J. Walker. So big ups to this sister. And next we have Brother Oglesby Sonny Lawson, who opened Denver's first black pharmacy. And that's downtown on the corner of 26th and Welton. He opened that in 1924. So I'm going to show you guys a picture of the park that's named after him. It's actually the park that's right next to the Blair Caldwell Library. So that was named after this brother here. He was actually the first black person in Denver to be named, where a park was named after him. So big ups to Brother Sonny Lawson. Next up we have Leroy Smith. And Leroy is the first black DJ in Denver and the first black to join Denver's Chamber of Commerce. Leroy, he had a 30-minute show called the Rockin' with Leroy Show. And this brother, he paid for his own airtime, he used his own records, and he did his own promotion and production. So big up to this brother for bringing, the good music here back in the day. Brother Leroy Smith. So next up we have Dr. Joseph Henry Peter Westbrook. And he might look white to a lot of y'all. I did a lot of research on this brother. He is not white. He's actually, because he was so light-skinned, it allowed him to infiltrate Colorado's Ku Klux Klan. So this brother went to the meetings, and what he would do is that he would get intel on what the Ku Klux Klan here in Colorado, what they were about to do, because we had I seen another video about the Ku Klux Klan here in Denver, and I'm going to do another video about that, but they were infamous, especially, Mr. Stapleton, the one that Stapleton's named after. So we'll get into that a little later on in another video. So, like I said, Dr. Joseph Henry Peter Westbrook, he was allowed into the Ku Klux Klan meetings. He was able to come back and warn black people of what they were planning to do against us. And he was also a physician, and he started Weld County's Black agricultural colony, and which was in Deerfield, Colorado. He was actually one of the ones, and there was another brother, Brother Toussaint. He started it, but Dr. Joseph Henry, he helped. So he had a hand in Deerfield, Colorado. He actually had a view that African Americans should try to travel back to Africa for separation and self-sufficiency. So this brother, he really looked out for us, despite his very light skin. He could have went over to the other side and been with them, but he actually risked his safety going into Ku Klux Klan meetings to come back and warn his people. So big ups, major props to Dr. Joseph Henry Peter Westbrook. All right, next up we have, and everybody should know him if you're a Denver native. He is a legend here. There is actually a street in our neighborhood, the Park Hill in the East Side area. There's a street named after him, Daddy Bruce Randolph. Major props to this brother. I actually had a chance to meet him when I was a kid, so he's a really good guy. He opened up Daddy Bruce's Barbecue, one of Denver's first barbecue joints, and he gave free Thanksgiving Day meals. He gives turkeys now, but he used to give actual meals and cook up for people, so I actually remember that. So, he was a great brother. He was quoted by saying, "You can't beat love." And 34th Avenue was dedicated to him as Bruce Randolph Avenue, and that was in 2002. So big ups to Daddy Bruce Randolph. Next we have the George Morrison Singing Jazz Orchestra, and in 1911 they became the first African American jazz orchestra. They traveled to London to perform for the Queen, so the brothers were big time. So big ups to the George Morrison Singing Jazz Orchestra. And next up, we have Mary Anderson Greenwood. She was the first black teacher to teach in Denver public schools. She was quoted as saying she wanted black teachers for black children. So big ups to this sister. She believed in empowering us through education. I give major props to that. Big ups to Mary Anderson Greenwood. Next up, we have Dr. Omar Blair, and he is one of the people that the Blair Caldwell African American Library on the 5 Points. He is one of the guys it's named after, and he was dedicated to education, and there's actually a charter school named after him here in Denver, and he was a really big advocate for education here in Denver in the early days. Big ups to Dr. Omar Blair. And next up we have Rachel B. Noel. She was the first black elected the first black elected to public office here in Denver, and she was the first the first African American member of the Denver School Board, and there is actually a middle school named after her, Rachel B. Noel. Big ups to the sister. She was really big on education too as well. And next up we have Elvin R. Caldwell. He's the Blair Caldwell. He is the other person that was named after that library. That library was named after, excuse me. And he was the first black member of the city council, and he is actually East High graduate. So big ups to Elvin R. Caldwell. And last up here we have Mr. Lauren Watson, and he was the leader of Denver's Black Panther Party in 1960. He had an office on Welton Street, the Black Panther office. So big ups to Lauren Watson. I know a lot of people think that we are not needed here at the Denver Black Panther Party, but you know, I think there's a need for one in every state. So what we're going through, we need help, we need security, we need people out there that are riding and dying for us, you know, if there are to be. So it's just a small little snippet, y'all. I just wanted to give you guys a little bit of history in Denver. Just like I said, I made this because everybody thinks Denver's just about weed and skiing, and you know, they don't know that we have a major history here. And I'm doing this because we can get that back. We can choose to live in the past. I know that's not a good thing, but we do need to live in the past. There were a lot of entrepreneurs here, and you know, they pretty much set the bar that hasn't been matched yet. You know, I don't see a lot of people here in Denver trying to actually empower their people, you know. So definitely, I'm not trying to speak down on anybody. I know we have a lot of brothers and sisters here trying to do things for us, but you know, it's time to take some more action. So I'll be coming with some more videos, letting you guys know what's going on. I'm going to be starting up some more stuff as well, so stay tuned. Peace and love.